Our top story this morning, the Israel-Palestinian conflict is raging and United States President Joe Biden has now thrown support behind Israel. Biden spoke to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and stated that Israel has a right to defend itself from rocket attacks, and he added that he hopes that the violence will end sooner than later.
I had a conversation with Bibi Netanyahu not too long ago. I'll be putting out a statement very shortly on that. My expectation and hope is that this will be closing down sooner than later. But Israel has a right to defend itself when you have thousands of rockets flying into your territory. But I had a conversation for a while with the Prime Minister of Israel, and I think that my hope is that we'll see this coming to conclusion sooner than later.
Now, Biden also said that his national security team had been in frequent contact with counterparts in Israel, Egypt, Saudi Arabia and the UAE to try to bring about a resolution to the conflict. White House statement about the Biden-Netanyahu talks said Biden condemned rocket attacks by Hamas and other groups against targets in Israel. Biden has conveyed his unwavering support for Israel's security, for Israel's legitimate right to defend itself and its people while protecting civilians. Now, the statement also added that Biden conveyed encouragement of a pathway towards restoring a sustainable calm. He shared his conviction that Jerusalem, a city of such importance to people of faith from around the world, must be a place of peace. Washington has also dispatched an envoy to the Middle East to try to calm their most intense hostilities in years. Now, the Deputy Assistant Secretary of State in charge of Israel and Palestinian affairs will meet both Israeli and Palestinian leaders. And U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has spoken with Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas and urged an end to the rocket attacks. Benjamin Netanyahu has thanked Biden for the American backing of Israel's right to self-defense. He has vowed to take action to strike at the military capabilities of Hamas and the other militant organizations operating in the Gaza Strip. Now, the statement from Joe Biden comes as the decades-old Israel-Palestine conflict has flared up yet again. Rockets are being launched from both sides. Israel has escalated its air campaign in Gaza after Hamas and other Palestinian groups from Gaza fired a barrage of rockets. The days-long outbreak of violence has killed dozens, including a string of senior Hamas military figures, as Israel hammered the Gaza Strip with airstrikes. Now, violence erupted last Friday at Jerusalem's Al-Aqsa Mosque. Anger is growing over the potential eviction of Palestinians for homes on land claimed by Jewish settlers. And now for more on this, WION correspondent Nick Harper is joining us live from Washington. Nick, thank you so much for joining us. Now, President Biden has thrown his support behind Israel. Could you tell our viewers about the impact that this will have on the broader conflict?
Well, the throwing of his weight behind Israel is not surprising. Bear in mind that Israel is viewed by the United States as a strong ally in the Middle East. Historically, that has been the case for decades. The US supporting Israel when it comes to matters with the Palestinians. And also bear in mind the fact that Hamas, the group that's currently in control of the Gaza Strip, is designated as a terrorist organization by the United States. What it might do in terms of how things may play out on the ground between the two sides by the US giving support to Israel, it will undoubtedly show Hamas that the US is giving its support to Israel, but making it clear that it wants both sides to de-escalate. The Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, said that both sides need to de-escalate. At this time, it was a message that was echoed by Joe Biden as well. So yes, strong support, but also looking for both sides to step away from conflict at this time.
All right. Now, there have been calls for international calls for calm, not just by the United States. And as I just mentioned, US too is in touch with counterparts from Egypt, Saudi and UAE to try to reach a resolution. What can we expect on that front?
Well, that is the diplomatic front that they are really trying to push on at the moment, working with regional partners. We were told in Washington today that dozens of phone calls had been made to the different countries, to top officials in the United States, to their counterparts in the Middle East as well. And it really is that idea to try and get concerted pressure from the West here, the US, but also from Middle Eastern allies and partners to try and push both sides, Israel and the Palestinians, Palestinians to step away from conflict, because there is this real fear that we are heading towards some very dangerous territory. We've already seen dozens of people killed, but the United Nations is warning that this could turn into a full-scale conflict, and they pushed on that today. The United Nations Security Council meeting in New York tried to get all sides to de-escalate. The European members of that really trying to show a concerted effort to tell all sides to put down their weapons.
Right, and now Washington has also dispatched an envoy. Again, the impact of this, how do you think the involvement of U.S. would now, them dispatching envoy would impact this conflict?
Well, it's certainly a bold step. It makes a strong statement saying that no longer is the US just going to stand on the sidelines and issue statements, issue strong words from here in Washington, make phone calls. They are physically getting a person on the plane, an envoy, to the region to be able to have face-to-face dialogue. I think that is a strong sign from the United States that they do not want to see this escalating any further. Of course, will it make much of a difference? I suppose the Israelis and the Palestinians will see that the whole of the world, including the United States, are a very strong supporter of Israel, but also one that has called for a two-state solution in the region, is willing to physically intervene. So there is some hope that they may be able to get progress from sending the envoy to the region, but it's unclear exactly how quickly that breakthrough, if there is one, may happen.
Right, Nick. Thank you so much for your inputs on that, but do stay with us. I will come back to you. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.